Brook'S here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1183, entitled Good Mermaid. So, first let's talk about our color spread because we got one this week. It's going to be very brief, but I just want to point out for the umpteenth time, I don't know how many times this has been, but Jinbei is hidden behind Frankie and Luffy, further proving my theory that Oda does not like drawing this character. I don't know what's up with that. It's happened so much. I'll put an example of one up on screen here, but it keeps happening. It just keeps happening. Okay, rant over. I just want to say this because he's my favorite Straw Hat. Okay, in January, specifically January 29th of 2007, we had chapter 442. This is the chapter in which Brook debuted. It has been 19 years since then, almost 20, and we have Brook's backstory in this chapter. Nearly 20 years later, this would be the second backstory of this arc, and I'm so happy we have it. People said that this would be Usopp's arc. I don't think so, buddy. Surprise, it's Brook's arc. Capital, fantastic. So, moving on with our chapter. Imu is confronting Loki and Ragnar. Ragnar is called out by Imu. Imu has beef with this squirrel because Imu says, Ragnar, thou hast waited all this time for one capable of bringing vengeance upon Imu. Is that not so? Ragnar responds, squeak, squeak, which is crazy. Why did this squirrel get so much lore all of a sudden? I'm always over the moon when this happens because, again, we called this 3 years ago that there would be a squirrel hammer. You can't even imagine how funny this is, that the devil is having beef with a squirrel that I predicted. It's so funny to me. Fantastic. This is great. I love this series. Oh my goodness. But yeah, Loki's confused because he's like, what is he rambling about? I've never seen someone so resilient. Yeah, because he's attacked him like 50 million times at this point. But for the first time, Imu then actually calls Loki and Luffy by name, saying that since they can't make soldiers out of them, they will erase them. This is then preceded by them mentioning somebody named Dozan. As Imu says, just like Dozan. So Dozan must be someone they killed in the past whom they could not make submit to their will. So maybe Dozan was a user of a very important devil fruit like Luffy and Loki. Not sure. Maybe it was the name of the warrior deity. Don't know. But then there seems to be a clash between Imu and Ragnar specifically, as lightning is called down from the sky. Someone shouts, Heem? It doesn't seem like it's Loki. But then Imu counterattacks with a technique called Ragnar 2 Jin Blades, Sword of Wrath Graham. But we cut to the western village in which Zaza is looming overhead. And yes, Zaza is a female deity figure, as we see that she has a generous bosom. So yes, that is a woman. And she has hydrokinesis as she is drowning some of the giants with water from her hand. This is the second nightmare creature with actual powers, which is very interesting because this most likely means that there is a Zaza fruit somewhere out there in the world. Sanji is on his way there. I don't know how effective he will be, seeing as how Zaza is a giant woman. But we then cut to where Ragnar froze Gunko, and she is still encased in ice, but it does seem the ice has been cracked, so Imu's explosion didn't do that much, which is quite interesting how hard that ice is. But then that's when the various Straw Hats question Brook about Gunko, and Usopp only butted in because the confrontation was serious. And Brook goes on to say how strange it is that the woman whom she thinks she is should be 77 by now. Everyone comes to the conclusion that this is a celestial dragon, so it could be a celestial dragon lookalike. But Brook goes on to say that can't be the case because she recognized him. That's why she released their restraints. So there seem to be three personalities within her. The demon, of which we know is Imu, her original personality, and then the personality that saved them from their restraints. So a lot of mystery surrounding Gunko. That's when Brook says it was honestly a long time ago. She was just a kid and I was so young there was once a kingdom that fell called Asperia. It was a country where music flourished, instrument studios lined the streets. And we cut to 70 years ago in the West Blue at 4 a.m. So, real quick, the interesting thing about the name Asperia is that there is a breed of pony called an Asperia pony. This is quite a cool connection because the animal that best represents Brook, or at least one of them, is a horse. So that's something to look at as a very interesting connection there. But also a municipality of Italy is also called Asperia in the real world. And it being in Italy might mean something for what we're going to see a little further on in the chapter. So yes, it is 4 a.m. in Asperia 70 years ago, and Asperia is in the West Blue, and Brook is waking up the entire kingdom as a young man, which is something he did for the Roombar Pirate. So this is a very cool callback. And everyone knows that it's him. And apparently there's an arena in Asperia, and the island looks a little like it has steps, kind of like Dressrosa a little bit, but there's a giant heart at the top of the plateau of the island. So I wonder if that's a significant location, or like, is that a real harp or is that a monument? I'm not sure. And Brook goes on to sing about sexy ladies as he welcomes the dawn, striking a Nika pose. Very interesting. He strikes a Nika pose. But yes, this is the Asperia Kingdom. And we cut to the Asperia Palace, and Brook is walking through the gardens, and the various hedges are shaped like musical notes, and there's another big harp. He is walking with Princess Shuri. We see that Princess Shuri, otherwise known as Gunko, does have heterochromia, and she is 7 years old at this point. And Brook, whom is Raider Captain of the Guard Corps of Asperia, is 20. And we see the man's eyes for the first time in nearly 20 years. We have never seen his eyes, not even the live action. He's always wore sunglasses. We've never seen this before. I never thought that he would have eyes. I always thought, even when we saw more of his backstory, because I always believed that we would see more of his backstory, I always thought it was going to be that weird cartoon thing you see sometimes in which a character is introduced to you with no eyes, and then you see them at a point when they have eyes, but then they just have sunglasses on. I never thought we would actually see him with eyes. And his eyes look like Usopp's. He kinda looks like Yasop more than he looks like Kuzan. Because that's been the going theory for years, that Brook is some sort of ancestor of Kuzan. I don't know about all that. And he is decked out. His whole personality makes sense. Also, he has a regular saber here. He doesn't have a cane sword. So I wonder, where does the cane sword come in at? Because he had the cane sword when he was a Roombar pirate. So yeah, that's weird. Also, another thing that he's missing here is the scar that he has as a human during his original flashback that then becomes a crack in his skull in the present, of which he uses to open up his head to store his tone dial of his crew playing their last song. So I wonder how significant the scar is going to be if he gets it as Asperia falls. That's something to look out for. But to continue, Brook is fawning over Lady Candle, who is the queen of the Asperia Kingdom, and Sherry chastises Brook for falling for a married woman whom is also her mother. And that's when we get to see King Luvian, who looks like a fat Zebek. It's very strange how he looks. And apparently he and Brook are bros, as they seem very familiar. As he says, "I'll execute you for treason for hitting on my wife." That's crazy. But it's so weird that he looks like Zebek or Wapple. And he's got a tiny little crown, and he's tending to the hedges as he's talking to them. That is so interesting. I didn't think we would have a Zebek lookalike this soon. And the same arc in which we learn about Zebek. So funny. So funny. But that's when Shuri says, very weirdly, but this is a joke, however, "When I grow big, I'll marry you instead, Brook." And Brooke shoots her down immediately because she has a runny nose. That's funny. That's hilarious. And the king goes to kick Brook. Fantastic. I love this. He lost so much. Brother lost the whole world when Esperia fell. Oh my goodness. But that's when a guard comes to alert the king about the Moran family coming into the port. And they're after Queen Candle for some reason. That's when we cut to Brook, and Brook says, the Moran family, that's strange. I met them at the harbor today. And that's when we cut to a place called the Opera Avenue, which is interesting because Queen Candle herself is at the Opera House, of which we see. And it's very immaculately drawn, honestly. So she seems to be a performer of some sort. As she says, that was such a wonderful performance. But then outside of the Opera House, the Moran family is all posted up. And we see one Moran family member shoot a guy, and he's wearing a striped suit. Now, just to pause it here. It's very interesting how consistent this is, because over the course of the series, we have had many mafia-style families, meaning Italian mafia, whom have come from the West Blue. That's why all the Italian influences from Esperia make sense, because it is in the West Blue with all these mafia guys. Because, of course, we have Capone Beige, who's from the West Blue, and then we just saw in the Zebek flashback that we have Don Merlan, who is also from the West Blue. So it's weird how consistent that is, that all these Italian mobsters are in the West Blue. Now, we've never heard of the Moran family before, so I don't know if they're related to Capone Beige or Don Marlon in any significant way, but they do seem to be pinstripe themed because they are wearing pinstripe suits and are riding zebras. So that's kind of funny, but it's interesting just how consistent that's been so far. So I really would like to have a breakdown of these families. And it's interesting too that Capone got his spotlight in Whole Cake Island, which is the same arc that Brooke got a significant spotlight in. So yeah, very cool world building. I like it a lot. I really do. The king is freaking out that Brooke just let them go without doing anything, supposedly. But Brooke goes on to say that the queen is strong and there's nothing to worry about because I already sliced them down. And that's what we see. Every gangster suffer from slash rooms immediately, and they all collapse. And one of them's like, what was that? Oh, Brooke is so him. Brooke is fantastic. And that's when the townspeople start reacting, saying, don't tell me these guys were already cut down. Then that means that was the captain, Brooke Swift Slash. It was the 3-pace hum, not slash. My goodness. He had it all. It's really like that Viva La Vida song. It really is. I hope someone makes an AMV with that song when this gets animated in the anime, because it really is like that. And everyone's fawning over the queen as she comes out of the opera house. And we get a little scroll saying, over 70 years ago, there were 2 massive stars in the kingdom of Esperia. One was the former commander of the Royal Guard Corps and the current queen, Candle. Candle, as a member of my Discord, Minnie pointed out, that she looks like Cavendish of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, like a female Cavendish. And this is the first time in which we're seeing a princely female archetype in One Piece, because she's dressed in a similar way to Brooke. She's a baddie, though. She's hot. But from the looks of her, we can't tell if she has heterochromia like Gunko or not, because one eye is always covered. Even when we get the full shot of her, a lock of hair is covering her other eye. So it's not very telling if she is a holder of heterochromia. I guess her hair is blue. I don't know if her hair is blue or if the king's hair is blue. The king's hair is darker, but then again, Gunko's hair is not colored in here. So I'm going to go out to say that the king's hair is most likely black, like Brooks, and the queen's hair is blue. But yeah, she is very new in One Piece. We've never had this before. A princely female. That's very interesting. I like her a lot. Them hips are wide as all get out, though. Good Lord. Anyway, she was a star of the Esperia Kingdom, but the other, though his music was widely disliked, would slash his targets so swiftly they never even noticed they'd been cut. He is a master of the Swift Slash, the captain of the Battle Raiders, Humming Brook. So Humming Brook was his original title. At this time, the kingdom was at peace. My goodness, I always believed, because this is what I'm talking about when I say a character has more in the tank, because we knew about this in Thriller Bark. This was in Thriller Bark. I have been waiting nearly 20 years for this to come to pass. I knew it would happen. Everyone doubted, and I knew it would happen. I knew it would happen because you don't set that up for it to mean nothing. So I wonder, how did the kingdom fall exactly? And how long has Brook been in the kingdom? Because we know around age 33, he was a pirate. So right now he's 20. So within 13 years, the kingdom fell, which is really weird, seeing as how you have guys like Brook around. So Brook, from we know from Thriller Bark, he was the best at this sword style, right? And it's interesting that the queen looks like a female Cavendish because, as I mentioned in a short a long time ago, it's very peculiar that it's just Brook and Cavendish who are fencers in One Piece. There aren't many fencers in One Piece at all. So that's weird. And I wonder now, what island is Thriller Bark? Because now Esperia is a candidate to be Thriller Bark. So I wonder, is it God Valley or is it Esperia? What's so weird about Esperia is that it kind of looks like Thriller Bark a little bit, because the palace. The palace is at the center. So the palace is at the center, and it's like a stepped island. So you have the palace and then the wider area where the township is that leads off into the port, and that's where the opera house is as well. So in that way, it looks like Thriller Bark, in which it's a ring with the island at the center. So Esperia looks like that, and that's how Thriller Bark was built, because you have the outer rim of the boat, and then the actual island was within that rim, separated by a moat. So I wonder, is Esperia actually Thriller Bark? Because we don't know what happened to the land after everybody left. Don't know. So yeah, it would be crazy if he was trapped in his homeland, converted into a ship. Could you imagine? Because I remember having videos about that way back in the day, that whatever his homeland is, at the time I thought it would be God Valley, but now that's not the case. But it's an odd thought that what if his homeland, meaning Esperia now, what if that was converted into Thriller Bark somehow? That's just so interesting to think about, because there has to be some island from the West Blue that got turned into Thriller Bark. It has to be. It has to be. So we shall wait and see. There does not seem to be a break next week, which is fantastic. My boy Brook got his second flashback. I'm over the moon. Right after he appeared in the live action too. Fantastic. So if you are enjoying the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, click the subscribe button, followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition to, if you could, hit the hype button, because it really does help. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. Exit.